If God has 99 names, each describing a distinct attribute of reality, which one describes you? This is not a poetic question. It is a metaphysical one that Ibn Arabi treated with scientific precision. He proposed that every person lives under a dominant divine name, an archetypal frequency that shapes personality, destiny, and the lens through which reality appears. According to him, we do not merely worship the names of God. We manifest one or more of them in our very being. The name lives through us as perception, emotion, and character. Modern psychology unknowingly circles the same mystery. Personality research finds stable trait constellations, habitual ways of feeling, thinking, and acting. Cognitive science adds that the brain does not passively record reality. It constructs it through predictive models based on prior experience. In both views, spiritual and scientific, your world is filtered through a pattern of perception that you did not consciously choose. Ibn Arabi's claim reframes identity. What psychology calls personality, he calls a divine name operating through human form. Your life becomes a conversation between the infinite and its reflection. Modern life fragments this reflection. Most people perform multiple selves: career self, a digital self, a private self, each optimized for visibility rather than truth. The result is chronic dissonance, a sense of being many things, but not one coherent being. Donald Winnicott called it the false self, an adaptive persona created to win approval. Over time, it replaces spontaneity with strategy. Cognitive neuroscience locates this process in the default mode network, the system that continuously narrates who I am through memory and imagination. Yet this narrative is unstable. It changes with context, producing inner fatigue and emotional fragmentation. The more we chase a fixed image of self, the further we move from inner coherence. Existential therapy calls this the anxiety of inauthenticity, the pressure to sustain an identity rather than inhabit one. Ibn Arabi offers a different diagnosis. You are not lost because you lack identity. You are lost because you have forgotten the name that defines your existential function. The confusion of the modern ego is not an absence of self. It is an overshadowing of your archetypal quality by roles, desires, and imitation. If you could recognize which divine attribute is expressing through you, the confusion of who am I would dissolve into I am the mirror through which this name shines. Ibn Arabi, the Andalusian philosopher known as Al-Sheikh al-Akbar, built one of history's most systematic ontologies of consciousness. At its core lies the doctrine of Osma al-Husna, the beautiful names of God. Each name represents a mode of divine operation: the compassionate, the wise, the beautiful, the powerful, and so on. Together, they form the qualitative architecture of reality. 99 expressions of the One, everything that exists, from galaxies to emotions, is a manifestation of these names in interplay. Every being mirrors a specific combination of them, but the human being uniquely integrates the full spectrum. Still, one name usually becomes dominant, shaping how consciousness filters and interprets experience. Modern personality theory mirrors this logic. The Big Five traits describe predictable constellations of behavior. Jung's archetypes portray inner energies that guide motivation. Ibn Arabi would say that principle is your dominant divine name in action. For Ibn Arabi, the divine names are not linguistic decorations. They are energetic forces that sustain the universe. Reality itself is the field where these names interact. The giver of life and the taker of life are not moral opposites but complementary laws of renewal. Physics uses equations. Ibn Arabi used names. Both describe fundamental operations. Just as gravity and electromagnetism hold material order, the names of compassion, power, and wisdom hold existential order, governing the unfolding of events and relationships. Modern neuroscience provides a mirror. Research on emotion construction shows that affective states alter perception. When you feel expansive, your brain widens its sampling of stimuli. When fearful, it narrows focus. The same environment can appear safe or threatening depending on internal bias. The name you live under acts as a bias of consciousness, a filter determining what you notice, interpret, and attract. You don't merely perceive reality, you reproduce the pattern of the name that organizes your awareness. Each person, Ibn Arabi says, expresses one dominant name through which divine intelligence manifests its purpose in time. Under the wise, you are compelled toward meaning-making and teaching. Even in chaos, you look for structure. Under the subduer, you encounter power struggles, learning to refine strength into lawful order. Under the compassionate, your life centers on healing and empathy. Yet you may struggle with boundaries. Personality traits correspond to motivational biases, curiosity, dominance, empathy. Neurotransmitter studies reveal biochemical correlates. Dopamine drives exploration, serotonin promotes stability, oxytocin enhances affiliation. Understanding your dominant name yields self-knowledge without self-obsession. Denying it produces contradiction. A person of the wise who avoids depth feels hollow. One of the subduer who resists leadership lives in suppressed anger. Recognizing your name aligns purpose with pattern, the first step toward inner coherence. Human beings carry multiple names, which sometimes clash. A person influenced by the gentle and the compeller will feel torn between compassion and firmness. This tension is not an error. It is the mark of being human. The human microcosm was designed to integrate divine diversity. Psychologically, this resembles cognitive dissonance, discomfort between opposing drives resolved through higher integration. Growth occurs by harmonizing conflicting impulses, not by erasing them. Suffering signals name conflict. Healing begins when we stop suppressing either pole and coordinate them. Justice informed by mercy, power guided by wisdom. Harmony of names equals psychological maturity. The world is the mirror of your name. Reality responds to the quality you project. The external is not independent. It echoes your internal configuration. Under the provider, you encounter generosity and resource flow. Under the humbling, you meet cycles of contraction that teach surrender, selective attention, confirmation bias, and predictive processing show that perception is an active filter. We perceive most vividly what resonates with our mental and emotional state. In social psychology, self-fulfilling prophecy demonstrates that expectation and behavior co-create outcomes. Repetition in your life is not coincidence. It is curriculum. The patterns that frustrate you most may be the unfinished lessons of your active name, the qualities reality is refining through your participation. The names are distinct, yet inseparable. Each describes a mode of being, but all share a single essence, the real. Diversity is the mirror through which unity becomes perceptible. This aligns with Spinoza's concept of modes within one substance and Jung's archetypes of the self. It mirrors how specialized brain networks integrate into one field of awareness. The trap is identification, mistaking the part for the whole. A person governed by justice may grow rigid. Another, under compassion, may dissolve boundaries entirely. Both confuse the name with the essence. The cure is perspectival humility. Your name is a facet of a diamond, not the diamond itself. When awareness recognizes unity beneath diversity, devotion replaces competition. The fragment knows itself as a function of the whole. Ibn Arabi's framework becomes practical when translated into cognitive and behavioral disciplines. Track repetitive emotional themes, values, and conflicts. Notice what consistently evokes intensity, enthusiasm, or frustration. Cluster these into attribute families: compassion, strength, beauty. The one that explains most of your reactions likely signals your dominant name. Each name has a counterbalance: mercy and justice, expansion and contraction. Identify yours and cultivate its opposite intentionally. Through balance, the name matures from instinct to virtue. Meditatively repeat a chosen name, synchronizing it with breath or heartbeat. Studies show decreased self-referential activity, producing calm and self-transcendence. This practice aligns cognition with divine frequency. Emotion and reason harmonize. Translate your name into daily ethics. If the wise seek knowledge that reduces confusion, if the compassionate perform one act of kindness without expectation, if justice uphold fairness even in small decisions, when lived consciously, your name becomes a stabilizing principle. You act not to prove identity, but to express function. Destiny becomes a dialogue between divine intention and human participation. Each of us embodies a dominant name, a pattern of perception and motivation that both limits and liberates us. Life's events mirror that pattern until we recognize and refine it. Neural networks, emotional states, and attentional filters continuously shape the reality we experience. Every person lives inside a self-reinforcing simulation. Within the reflection of their active name, transformation begins not by rejecting the self, but by understanding the name that speaks through it. Awareness converts compulsion into coherence, and coherence into wisdom. When you discover which name moves through you, whether wisdom, compassion, justice, or power, you stop living reactively and start living reflectively. The world ceases to be random and becomes a mirror of correspondence. You are no longer the dust upon the glass, but the polished surface through which the infinite contemplates its own attributes. Knowledge of your name is not self-worship. It is participation in the intelligence of the real.